Previous projects have left me with a bunch of this bike chain. So I've been doing different things with bike chain. So today I'm going to take this and I'm going to break it apart and I'm going to create some earrings with it. So first thing we got to do is got to get the links apart. This is just a standard chain tool. I think this is probably my third or fourth chain tool to go through here. These, I think you get, 20 links out of any given chain tool. But I'm also including in that average the chain tool that I bought that never actually removed one link. It immediately bent when I bought it. So if you're actually removing chain to reuse it, don't do what I'm about to do and push the pin all the way through. Just a little hint here. I actually want the individual links, so I don't care. There we go. I'll just push the pin all the way out and then pluck the links off this. Sometimes that one link likes to get a little bit wedged down in there with this tool. I got to, just back it off a little bit further here. So once we get them both out of here, I got my little dish full of some citrus degreaser. So we're just going to throw the links in there. And I'm going to let this sit and soak for a little while. It gets some of that grime off there. So once those have good and soaked for a couple hours there, you pull them out. And don't do that. Don't use a magnet. I'm not doing that again. That splattered stuff everywhere, including all over my face at the moment. I'm trying to hide that I'm dripping. So I usually take just a paper towel and wipe off what I can. But really, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the Dremel. And I've got a special little buffing wheel on here. It's really just like a Scotch pad type of wheel that goes on here. And this is really great for scrubbing off all sorts of dirt and grime and grease. So one of the things I want to mention is whoever designed the Dremel is left-handed. It goes the wrong way. It always spits stuff back at me as a right-handed person. So you left-handed folks out there, the Dremel company, they got your back. I don't know why, but they got your back. So I did speed this up a little bit. This is a tedious process. Obviously, this is a small piece. It's, a single chain link. But there we go. A nice, clean chain link. And at the moment, the problem is it's going to be too smooth to take paint well. So the next thing we got to do is we got to scuff it up a little bit. So I'm going to take some sandpaper here, some real fine sandpaper, and just scuff up that nice clean surface because we are going to paint this. And as smooth as I just made that, the paint absolutely will not stick in any sort of way that'll be useful for later on. So once I get all of these cleaned up and scuffed up, which was a long process, I made this little rack to hold them for painting. So there they are. They're mounted with some wire. And I do this after a lot of experimentation of how to paint these things and get a good coat on both sides, nice and flat, no big drips. This little holder I made does a great job. And there we go. A couple coats of black paint on there. It turns out nice and flat, and no big drips, and the paint's nicely adhered. All right, now the cool part, the laser. So I, again, used the 3D printer to build a little jig. This holds the links in the exact same spot for every link that I do. So it's real easy for me to locate and level and, hold the link in place and fully expose it. So what takes a long time here is figuring out the settings for the laser. How fast do I need the laser to go and what kind of power to use so that I get a nice clean path on here. This is a custom design that I made. I am not using a etch type of operation here. I'm actually using a cut operation because I want these to be very smooth lines. And if I did an etch, they would turn out a little bit jagged. So next, I got to check and make sure that power setting and the speed settings were correct to cut deep enough through that paint that they were hitting metal. And the problem is they leave a little bit of carbon behind, so it's a little bit dark and hard to see. So I'm going to get my Kanukistan ruler out here and use the light on it to check and see if I've got that cut deep enough in there. Judging from what I'm seeing, it's not quite deep enough, so we'll probably do 2 passes on here. So let's set up the camera a little bit differently, and don't tell nobody, but I'm going to leave the shield open, and we'll laser it here so you can see what's actually going on there with the laser cut head at the same time that it's actually etching the piece. Among other concerns is the actual heat of the link, if that gets too hot, that is a plastic mount that it's on, and it will end up melting that. Also, the paint doesn't exactly hold up to high temperatures either, so got to be real careful there to hit it quick and not heat it up. So here's our finished link. You can see that it's kind of dirty. So this is just rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to speed this footage up, but I'm being really, really, really gentle here. And just trying to remove some of the soot from here and trying to rely pretty heavily on the alcohol itself to break up the soot that's on there and for the cleaning. So once I've done that, here's my links all etched again, and I put them back on the paint holder. And what I'm going to do is spray a couple coats of clear lacquer on top of this. I do need to seal that exposed metal will rust. So here are the links. After putting a couple coats of clear on there, it really smooths out the etching that happened there. Sometimes you get some jagged edges because of the sanding and whatnot. But next thing we're going to do is use a jump ring to actually mount this into an earring. So I got a bunch of random sized jump rings laying around here. So just thread the jump ring through the chain link piece and then take our earring piece and put that on there as well. And then I'm going to grab my pliers here. I got a couple sets of jewelry pliers here that just help get in there nice and tight on that jump ring. And I should have grabbed another pair so I don't have to do this with my fingers, but I'll make it work. There we go. Just kind of get the jump ring lined up like that. And then I'm going to put a little dab of silver on here, some jewelry solder, just to keep that ring closed. These things do love to get opened just from a little bit of force. So grab my nice little heat sink here. I don't want the heat transferring from that jump ring onto that nice freshly painted surface there. So we'll flux that up a little bit and grab my soldering iron here and a little bit of jewelry solder, not just regular solder. Don't give people lead poisoning, please. So this stuff is a little bit trickier to work with. Melting point's a little bit worse, and it doesn't flux quite as nice as the old school electronic solder with lead in it. But you know what? I'd rather live a happy life without lead poisoning. I think everyone would. So there we go. That's all nice and mounted up to the earring. There's a nice little close-up of what the etching actually turned out to look like. It's pretty difficult to capture, but there's a nice little pair of them together, and poke, and there you go. They look good.